And hello, welcome to Conservative Arkansas Media. My name is Paul Harrell. Thanks so much for being with us. Thanks so much for watching. We really do appreciate it. So we do have some interesting news to get to today. First off, about a month ago, we didn't cover this, but about a month ago, the Speaker of the House of the state of Arkansas, Matthew Shepard, announced that he was not going to seek that office again. He's still going to run for re-election for his House seat in South Arkansas, but he's not going to aspire to get elected Speaker of the Arkansas House of Representatives again. Fundamentally what this means is from now until the end of the fiscal session in Arkansas next year, there's going to be a lot of political jockeying going around trying to figure out, well, who is going to be the next Speaker of the House here in Arkansas. So that's just a little bit of inside baseball that has been going on now. And, who knows? It's been a month, so they already may have figured it all out and know where all of the pieces are going to land. So as we have been covering the state of politics in Arkansas this year, one of the things I've said is, look, it is pretty incredible that we have passed a lot of these laws protecting kids from just really the depravity of our culture, how fast it's all around us. I mean, and it's not just Arkansas that's done this, but it's other red states, and we've told you about that. But when it comes to conservatives actually having political wins and political victories, one of the things we haven't talked about, but we should have known this was coming, I knew this was coming, and that's activist judges stepping up and trying to undo the will of the people, trying to legislate from the bench. And that's what we now, in fact, have. Earlier this week, we have the Judge Moody. Once again, we're very familiar with this guy. He struck down a lot of conservative pieces of legislation over the years here, that originated in Arkansas. And so Judge Moody has said that a law that was passed back in 2021 that banned, quote, well, let me just say it banned the genital mutilation of children and calling it health care. They're going to say it's gender-affirming care. It banned, quote, gender-affirming care here in the state for minors, and he basically overturned that and, put an injunction against it. And Attorney General Tim Griffin has said he's going to appeal the ruling, obviously, to the 8th Circuit Court. So, anyway, that is the news. Here is THV. Here is how they decided to cover this. Just so you know, this was a couple of days ago.
We start with late developing news tonight. A federal judge has struck down the state's ban on gender-affirming care for children.
U.S. District Judge Jay Moody's injunction says the first of its kind law in the nation is unconstitutional. The law was enacted in 2021 and stopped doctors from providing gender-affirming hormone treatments, puberty blockers, or surgeries to anyone under 18.
State Attorney General Tim Griffin plans to appeal. And while today's ruling affects only the Arkansas ban, it may carry implications for the fates of similar laws in other states that have been adopted over the past 2 years.
Isn't it
start with late developing news tonight?
That we have that term that is bantered about. I mean, it's like the naming of Planned Parenthood. For years, we all thought, well, they've named it Planned Parenthood, but it's really a place where you go and murder your children, okay? But they call it Planned Parenthood. And yet they call this gender-affirming care, when in reality, this gender-affirming care, when you go to the surgical level, is removing the very characteristics that we associate with gender. And yet these news anchors, really and truly, I don't know how they do it, THV 11, adopting this. I mean, this is beyond Planned Parenthood in a way, although you can make the argument that it's worse. The naming, the going along with the deception, going along with a name like Planned Parenthood is going along with the deception, trying to pull the wool over people's eyes. You're not actually disseminating the truth from a media standpoint. You don't actually have the best interest of the people. But the fact that these are now, there's no ambiguity, although there's no ambiguity with me when it comes to my opinion on when life begins. But these are kids today, now, they're in front of us. There is no argument about whether or not they're a person. They're here before us, and we're going to call chemical castration, puberty-blocking hormones, and surgery for minors gender affirming care. How dare you? How do you sleep at night? How do you sleep at night without telling people at least, well, they call it gender affirming care. Those gender affirming cares, in some cases, involve double mastectomies and removing genitalia. And calling it health care? We have lost our minds. We have lost our minds. Now, we knew this would happen. Okay. Anytime conservatives advance victories, specifically in the social realm, specifically when it comes to holding up an issue and pronouncing a judgment on it, saying this is something that's going on in our society and we are going to say that it's good, or we're going to say that it's evil. If we say that it's evil, we're going to codify that and put it in law and prevent it from happening. And anytime that happens, it makes the left, they just go crazy. Quite frankly. Now, and a lot of the reason they go crazy is because they're brainwashed by cable television, and they have to be reminded every 2 years, especially in southern states, that they live amongst people that totally disagree with their point of view, their lifestyles, their worldviews, and everything else. But, TV and the networks and everything they consume tells them that their opinions are actually the majority, that chemical castration, genital mutilation surgery is all fine, when in reality the people that live among them are actually rejecting it and are disgusted by it, and are very concerned about what it means for our society moving forward. Now, we've told you the other day about essentially the depopulation, the demographic problem that this prevents for the left, which is why they have to take over the school system, because they have to have new converts, because they themselves are not having as many babies as people that actually can procreate and have the potential to procreate. And that's a whole other set of issues. But what we're going to do with this ruling is we're going to, obviously you've got the Attorney General, Tim Griffin, who's going to appeal it, which is really good. Really thankful that he is going to try to defend this law. And who knows, maybe it goes all the way to the Supreme Court. Maybe the Supreme Court can rule that, yes, in fact, a state has the authority to ban certain surgeries. But let's actually break down part of Judge Moody's ruling, okay? If we go over to Andrew DeMillo's piece over in the Associated Press, there's the headline: Judge rules that Arkansas ban on gender-affirming care for transgender minors violates the U.S. Constitution. Now, first of all, this term transgender used to be in textbooks as dysphoria, as a condition. A federal judge struck down Arkansas's first in the nation ban on transgender affirming care. U.S. District Judge Jay Moody issued a permanent injunction against the Arkansas law, which would have prohibited doctors from providing gender-affirming hormone treatment, puberty blockers, or surgery to anyone under 18. Okay, let's look at his reasoning for this. In his order, This is the first thing that just struck me. In his order, Moody ruled that the prohibition violated the due process and equal protection rights of transgender youth and families. But here's this one. He said the law also violated the First Amendment rights of medical providers. The First Amendment rights of medical providers. What does that even mean? Is he saying that medical providers have First Amendment rights to brutalize and mutilate their patients just because the patients want them to? Can you think in history about the horror stories that you've heard about scientists and doctors and how we prevent them from doing certain things? For a long time, would this work? Remember when there was a ban on cloning? And I don't pretend that there is anymore, but remember the sheep? What was it, Dolly? Remember all this? Oh, they cloned a sheep, and everybody's like, whoa. We gotta pass laws against this. No, you're violating my medical First Amendment rights to experiment. And, or what are we gonna say, that Dr. Frankenstein has a medical, a First Amendment medical right to be able to do whatever he wants to the human race? No, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely maddening. It just goes to show you that we really are calling evil things good and good things evil. And we're willing to do any sort of mental gymnastics to try to justify it. Back to this ruling. It goes on. Quote, rather than protecting children or safeguarding, this is an actual quote from the ruling, Jay Moody, rather than protecting children or safeguarding medical ethics, the evidence showed that the prohibited medical care improves the mental health and well-being of patients, and that by prohibiting it, the state undermines the interests it claims to be advancing. So he thinks he's got him here. He says, you guys are essentially hypocrites for doing this because, if they don't get the surgery, then they're going to be very depressed and their mental well-being won't be good. And so this is the debate right now between the left and the right on this issue is suicides. See, those from the right point to statistics that say after you get the surgery, you're still depressed and you go through with suicide. The people on the left are saying, no, they're killing themselves because they don't have access to gender-affirming care. Oh, and by the way, just a side note on this. The suicidal aspects of the transgender community, that is an act of violence against yourself. And psychologically speaking, and you can look at this as well, not that facts matter to the left, but if you're willing to commit harm against yourself or violence against yourself, you are more likely than somebody who's not considering those things to commit harm against other people. That's how you can go to the Nashville Christian persecution situation where that trans terrorist went into the Nashville school and shot up a bunch of Christians and killed children. That is one of the speculative ideas as to why, because they were not happy with the decisions that they made concerning all of the stuff they bought. The media telling them that you need to be transgender, you need to end the ability for you to have kids and reproduce on your own and become a mother or a father yourself. And the media claps like seals when they do it, and they highlight it, and they give you all this attention. And then when it's all gone, you still have the same problems that you did before. And so then you lash out. In this case, you lash out at Christians who are trying to pass laws protecting kids. And that's what this is doing. But you know what? This is all going to get sorted. Because we're going to keep passing these laws, and we're going to keep standing on the firm foundation that's behind them, and that's being on the side of justice and being on the side of protecting the innocents and being on the side of morality and not a slippery slope of depravity. And eventually, what's going to happen, and I've been saying this for a long time, and if this is going to be the battle of our time. Well, I don't know about the battle of our time, but it'll be a big political battle. States are going to begin opening up child abuse statutes, and they're going to start putting these procedures under child abuse statutes, meaning if you do them in state or out of state, you will be guilty of child abuse, and you will not have access to your child if you're going to buy into this barbary. We're going to find a way legally, with the law, to be able to pronounce something that this is good and this is bad. And again, we're talking about kids here, but we're going to get into something that Mike Pence said in a minute. Now, if you think that's extreme, there's a California law that's being debated right now that would enable you to lose custody of your child if you don't buy into the LGBT agenda and use the pronouns. They come home from school now claiming that they're a man when they were born a girl, or a girl when they were born a man. There's a California law on the books that is now saying that in custody disputes, if one parent doesn't go along with the gender, this new construct, then the judge has to give custody to the parent that is using the proper pronouns. Or technically, it's the inaccurate pronouns, but you get the point. This caused a California lawmaker, state senator, who would normally say, we're going to stay on the ground and fight. We're going to try to make California conservative. He told parents with kids to flee to America, to flee California, to give up. If you have kids, they're going to pass this law. If you have kids, you need to flee California. Other states are doing the exact same thing. And you know what? If it means that people leave, then so be it. But as long as we still have our sovereignty in individual states that we do, and our state governments, and we're still able to govern ourselves and elect people for as much as we can, and then pass laws and have my representative or your actually represent the people, represent their constituents, and we have laws that mean something, that have teeth in them, and we can still do all this, then we're going to continue to do this. And we're going to let those other states, they can continue to do what they're going to do. And we'll see what happens. That's my take on it. I mean, I'm upset that the judge, but I mean, it's par for the course. These are activist judges, and they don't know. Now, I will say this: it really makes me sad for somebody like it. Jay Moody, this judge, makes me sad for his soul. Honestly, for him to do this, for him to overturn a law that was there to protect children from parents who've bought into everything that they've heard on MSNBC, who are taking their kids and marching their kids down a path of destruction and a life of misery, all because of, we are obsessed with sex and identifying everything through the lens of sex. I feel sorry for this judge because what he's done is very wicked. He's done a very, very bad and wicked thing making this ruling that is essentially going to mean that more kids are going to be marched down a path of destruction. So that's really sad. Do you remember the mask debate? If you love your neighbor, you'll wear a mask. Do you remember that? Yeah, I didn't buy into that. That was to me a twisting of scripture. But what about if you love your neighbor and they want to go through with these transitioning surgeries, and they are 18 or older? Is it loving to just go ahead and let them do it? And we can just say that this, because there's two arguments here. One is we have a situation where children are being put on a path of destruction, and basically it's abuse. I think it's child abuse. And then you say, well, now that you're 18, we're going to go ahead and let you do that because you're 18. You can do what you want. But really, again, just because you're 18 doesn't mean you just have license to. I mean, it's not like you just can do whatever you want, right? We still have things and obstacles that are in your path, even when you're 18 years old, about certain things, right? So is it really a good thing that we want to say in our society? I mean, think about it. Like, there are people like abortion. It doesn't matter if abortion's illegal in Arkansas. It doesn't matter what age you are, right? It's illegal with the certain exceptions or whatever. So there are some things we can say no to. Is, quote, gender affirming care one of those things? Having doctors perform these surgeries, taking lumps of fat here and there, fashioning this and that. I'm trying not to, you get what I'm saying. Is that something that we can say no to within our borders or within the entire country if we wanted to? Would there be anything wrong with that? Would it be against the Christian faith to prohibit that in law? Well, Mike Pence thinks so. He thinks to tell an 18-year-old not to do that would be not loving his neighbor as himself. This is what he said on Jordan Peterson's show. Listen.
To prohibit gender transition, chemical or surgical treatment for children under the age of 18. I'd look at, I'm libertarian enough to say if you're an adult, you live while you live. I may not agree with decisions you make, but we'll love you and love our neighbor as ourselves, as my faith requires, right? But
you could tell he was kind of nervous answering that question. What are your thoughts on that? Feel free to sound off in the comments. Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about it. I actually think that this is absolutely, completely wrong. I'm sorry. I mean, we have this idea that we don't want to judge, other people. But this would be to tell your neighbor, to love your neighbor as yourself in this context would be to tell them the truth that what they are doing is not good for them, now or in the future. That's what the loving thing to do here, in my opinion, would be. We have Mike Pence. Let's listen to it again, shall we?
To prohibit gender transition, chemical or surgical treatment for children under the age of 18. I'm libertarian enough to say if you're an adult, you live while you live. I may not agree with decisions you make, but we'll love you and love our neighbor as ourselves, as my faith requires, right? But
as my faith requires, I will just say that mentality right there, I may not agree with it, but far be it from me. That is the reason we are where we are right now. That's why we have kids going to drag. Parents are taking their kids to drag shows because that is the Republican secular philosophy of how, we don't want to talk religion and politics. No. I may disagree. I mean, that is the Mitt Romney, Mike Pence, Asa Hutchinson. That is literally their mantra. I may personally disagree, but far be it from me. Say what you want to. I mean, the debate is over. That style of republicanism gets us where we are today. Live and let live idea, libertarianism, which I used to be all on board, but I have, maybe it's because I became a dad, or I don't know what it is, but this libertarian philosophy of live and let live. First of all, the other side doesn't play that way. They're not for live and let live. Look at how they reacted when Hobby Lobby wanted the exemption to not provide contraceptives under Obamacare to their employees because they had a faith. They freak out with anything like that, and there's not a live and let live. Well, you do you, we'll do us. That's not how they play. But let's assume that they did play that way. Okay, what that means is we have to accept parents taking their children for chemical castration or surgery, society pronouncing it health care, and us just sitting back and saying, live and let live, you do you, we'll do me. And I think people across the country are saying, if that is the quid pro quo, if that's the give and take, our conscience is not going to allow us to say, okay. Our conscience is not going to allow us to say, okay, fine, just take the kids and do what you want to with them. Because we all know where this is really leading. And the Republican secularists like Mike Pence don't see it. But this is really leading, and this may get us kicked off, I don't know. This is leading to the normalization and acceptance of pedophilia. All of that's exactly where it's leading. And you know what? It's funny. I mean, if you go back and you look at what was said at the very beginning about gay marriage is just two people that want to get married. We're a lot further down that slope. But I would even take, you could go back even further. And I said this the other day, but those 1950s rock and roll moms were right. Those 1950s, 1960s moms that were like, hey, these lyrics are satanic. They were right. And to pretend like they didn't contribute to the degradation of our society, and that was not, one of the pillars, one of the key pillars that got us where we are. They were totally right. Anyway, so sound off in the comments. Tell me if you disagree with me. Tell me if you think I'm wrong. I don't know. I've had enough. I know that the Republican secularists that don't want to talk religion and politics, they're the problem right now. They are part of the problem. And in the meantime, local levels are continuing to elect state rep. This happens right here in Arkansas at the local level. We're electing state representatives that are going and passing these types of laws by citing Scripture or citing their belief in God is the reason why these laws are necessary. And you know what? That's a great thing. That is a really, truly great thing, because the hour is late, and it's time for the states to use what little bit of states' rights we have left in this constitutional republic to push back and start. There hasn't. Look, this really goes to show you. In 73 and 74, the states across this country were having the debate over abortion. And the Supreme Court, man, I mean, they came in and kneecapped us, and they just prevented us from having the debate to where you could have had a state that was pro-abortion, you had a state that was against abortion, and that's what this whole land would have looked like. This, I mean, and most of them would have become pro-life, you know? And so with the makeup of the Supreme Court now, who knows what they're going to do? I mean, I'm not holding my breath. Look, I never thought Dobbs would happen, but I'm certainly grateful it did, and it gives me a lot of hope. But this is the same thing that happened in 73 is happening now over this issue of child abuse. And it will be interesting to see what happens. And as long as there's not some Supreme Court decision that comes down and kneecaps the rest of the country again and prevents us from having this debate and prevents us from, having different laws in different states based on the people that live there, as long as the Supreme Court doesn't do that, I think things are going to be okay. I think this is going to work itself out because look, you guys know where I stand. I think it's evil, and I think we need to do the good thing and prevent evil from happening. It's not a complicated thing. But let me know what you think. You can sound off in the comments. You can tell me where you think I'm wrong. My name is Paul Harrell. This is Conservative Arkansas Media. Really appreciate you being with us. We're going to be talking with a state representative next week on the program. You don't want to meet that. State Representative Bart Schulz will be with us. He was a freshman last year. All right, I guess this was his. What I'm trying to say is this was his freshman session this past year. So I like to interview freshmen. I like to get their take on what they thought and everything else. So we're going to be doing that next week. So you don't want to miss that. Again, my name is Paul Harrell. We will see you next week.